They're very close to us, they're almost us, but they're not quite us.
A human species that was strong, intelligent, and easily survived even brutal times like the Ice Age, yet suddenly disappeared 40,000 years ago. No war, no clear trace, just disappearance. For centuries, archaeologists visited their caves and analyzed their bones but never found an answer. Then, new discoveries in England and France allowed researchers to understand them more deeply. And when ancient DNA technology was used, a truth emerged that turned the entire extinction story upside down. Neanderthals were not weak. For 300,000 years, they thrived comfortably in Europe and Western Asia. They hunted mammoths and bison, built shelters from stone and animal hides, and lived in temperatures that today's humans can only survive for a few minutes. Evidence also suggests that they took care of their sick and elderly, meaning they were socially advanced. Yet about 40,000 years ago, the entire species disappeared. Scientists call this the quietest extinction, because this extinction appears to have occurred in some other way, not naturally. The patterns found in ancient DNA are not simple. Some sequences appear as if some unseen factor caused their entire population to gradually collapse. This is where the real twist begins. And this is the point that has given researchers a clear direction for the first time in decades. In this video, we will reveal the truth that was buried underground for thousands of years, a fact that changes the very foundation of human history. And one more thing, understand, you are watching the video but not subscribing. You should not miss such high-quality research videos, so do subscribe once. Who were the Neanderthals? Neanderthals weren't primitive, weak, or savage, as many people think. In fact, they lived on the land of Europe and Western Asia for about 300,000 years as the strongest and most adaptable human species. The climate at that time was extremely cold. The Ice Age was underway, but Neanderthals made that environment their home with their strength, intelligence, and survival skills. Their body structure was also unique. Broad shoulders, strong arms, and thick bones that allowed them to function easily even in extreme climates. Their brains weren't small either. Several skull studies show that Neanderthals' brain size was slightly larger than that of modern humans, i.e., ours. This doesn't mean they were more intelligent, but it certainly shows that their thinking and planning abilities were well developed. They planned their hunting strategies in advance, understood weather conditions, and were always ready to change their location if necessary. This means they were not only strong, but also intelligent. The Neanderthals' lifestyle was entirely adapted to the Ice Age. They built small but sturdy shelters from stone and animal hides. They gathered around campfires to cook food, keep their children warm, and wore animal fur to protect themselves from the icy winds. Mammoths, bison, and other large Ice Age animals were among their primary hunting grounds. These hunts were conducted through teamwork, suggesting strong coordination and group planning. Their social life was also highly developed. Evidence suggests they cared for their sick and elderly relatives. Many skeletons bear wounds that healed only after receiving long-term care. This suggests that Neanderthals were not simply a race for survival, they also possessed compassion and empathy. Burial sites have been found in many caves where bodies were intentionally placed, perhaps reflecting their own cultural beliefs or respect systems. Overall, Neanderthals were not a simple or backward species. They were brave, resourceful, and incredibly smart survivors of their time. By living in tough climates, battling large predatory animals, and ruling European lands for thousands of years, they cemented their place in human history. It's shocking to think that such an advanced species could suddenly disappear, and this mystery still baffles scientists today. Life in the Ice Age. Living during the Ice Age was nothing short of a nightmare. Temperatures could drop to the point where an average person could freeze to death within minutes. Snow, strong winds, and frozen ground were everywhere. But Neanderthals made this world their home. They understood every aspect of nature, discovered ways to combat the cold, and adapted their bodies to the harsh environment. This allowed them to survive so easily in this harsh climate for thousands of years. Their greatest strength was their hunting system. Huge animals like mammoths, woolly rhinos, and bison roamed the Ice Age, and they were difficult to capture. Neanderthals relied on teamwork to capture these animals. They traveled in packs, set traps, and used sharp spears to kill large animals at close range. This hunting provided them with meat, bones for tools, and animal hides for clothing and shelter. A mammoth hunt could sustain an entire camp for several days. The cold of the Ice Age not only made them strong, but also inventive. They built shelters from stones and animal hides, what we might today consider tents or huts. These shelters protected them from the wind, kept them warm, and kept their families safe. Most important was their fire control skills. Neanderthals knew how to light a fire, tend it, and keep it burning for hours. The fire provided warmth, helped them cook food, and protected them from wild animals. Their clothing was also a major component of their survival. Jackets, boots, and gloves made of animal skin and fur protected them from the freezing cold. Only such clothing could have kept them alive in the frigid winds of the Ice Age. Artifacts found in many caves indicate that Neanderthals also learned techniques like stitching and hide processing, meaning their clothing system was quite advanced. Overall, life in the Ice Age would have been debilitating, but Neanderthals took it as a challenge. They survived not by fighting nature, but by adapting to it. They continued to thrive despite extreme cold, dangerous animals, and limited resources. And this shows that they were not just survivors, but masters of their time. Social structure and culture. Neanderthals' social system was no less than that of any modern human group. They lived in small family groups consisting of children, parents, and elders. Survival alone was impossible in a harsh world like the Ice Age, so their entire life was based on teamwork and mutual support. Each member had their own role. Some specialized in hunting, some in preparing hides, and some in keeping children safe. Their group hunting methods were also highly organized. They didn't hunt large animals like mammoths and bison alone. The entire group carefully strategized, deciding who would attack from where, who would surround and drive the animal. All of this was decided in advance. This shows that Neanderthals had highly developed planning and communication skills. Hunting wasn't just a source of food, but also part of group unity. Their most touching quality was empathy. Archaeological evidence has revealed many skeletons with serious injuries, such as broken bones, joint diseases, or permanent injuries. All these injuries could only heal if the person received months or years of care. This means that Neanderthals weren't the type to abandon their sick and elderly. They fed, kept them warm, and fully supported them. Burials also appeared to have been part of their culture. In many caves, bodies were carefully placed, sometimes with flowers or tools. This suggests respect and perhaps early symbolic beliefs. This means they weren't solely focused on survival. They also possessed emotions, relationships, and perhaps even early forms of spirituality. Their technology, Neanderthals' greatest strength was their technology, which we know today as the Mousterian tool culture. These tools weren't simple stones. They were specially shaped, multi-purpose tools that could be used for cutting, scraping, wood shaping, and hunting. These tools demonstrate Neanderthals' deep understanding of materials and were experts in stoneworking. Their weapon system was also impressive. They made wooden spears that were perfectly balanced, not too heavy, not too light. These spears were used for close-range hunting, where the hunter was almost immediately next to the animal. Such dangerous hunting required both skill and courage, and Neanderthals were adept at both. Some research suggests that the power of their spears was comparable to that of a modern javelin. Fire control was another major skill. In the cold of the Ice Age, fire was not just a luxury, but a life-saving tool. Neanderthals knew how to light, maintain, and use fire for cooking. Their fire management was so good that evidence has been found at many sites that fires burned for days, meaning they understood its proper maintenance system. Their hunting techniques were also advanced. They used natural landscapes, such as cliffs, narrow passages, or snowy paths, to corner animals. This means they read the environment, understood the terrain, and used it to their advantage. This level of environmental awareness was quite high. Several discoveries also suggest that Neanderthals used adhesives, such as tree resin, to join tools. This was an early form of glue technology and is considered an advanced skill in human history. Overall, Neanderthal technology wasn't simple. They were a species that innovated even in harsh conditions. Stone tools, spears, fire control, and environmental intelligence made them masters of the Ice Age for thousands of years. Archaeologists' 200-year search. The search for Neanderthals isn't new. Scientists have been baffled ever since their strange skulls and bones were first discovered in Europe about 200 years ago. Initially, people weren't sure whether they were humans or some other species. Gradually, caves were excavated in various countries: Germany, France, Spain, Croatia, and traces of Neanderthals were found everywhere. But the more evidence was found, the more pressing the question became: how did such a robust species disappear? Scientists searched from every angle: the shape of the bones, the quality of the tools, the ash layers found in the caves. Everything was studied. Many theories emerged. Some blamed climate change. Some said modern humans wiped them out, and some attributed it to diseases. But none of the theories had solid proof. It seemed as if the Neanderthal extinction story was deliberately shrouded in mist. Over 2 centuries of research, archaeologists collected thousands of artifacts. But one thing was missing: the final trigger. Labs around the world determined the age of bones, compared the style of tools, and tried to connect them by extracting climate data from rocks. But the timeline didn't match. In some places, the extinction appeared earlier, in others later. This deepened the mystery. The biggest problem was that genetic information could not be extracted from old bones. Due to the lack of DNA technology, scientists could only make guesses, not certainties. In other words, they had pieces, but the puzzle wasn't complete. This is why the disappearance of Neanderthals remained an unsolved question for so long, one that challenged both archaeology and anthropology. New discoveries in England and France. Then in recent years, some new discoveries in England and France began to change the story. At these sites, archaeologists found bones and stone tools with surprisingly good preservation. The remarkable thing was that the bones and teeth were in such good condition that ancient DNA could be extracted from them, a feat never before possible. First, some Neanderthal teeth were found in a cave in England, with their enamel intact. This enamel provided DNA scientists with their first major clue. DNA sequencing revealed that just before the extinction, Neanderthal groups' populations had become very small and isolated. This meant that genetic weakness was increasing internally, reducing their survival potential. Stone tools found in France solved another puzzle. Researchers discovered that some tools were made with techniques used by both modern humans and Neanderthals, indicating that both species lived at the same time and in the same place. This means that the extinction wasn't just a story of disappearance. It also involved interaction and perhaps competition. DNA traces revealed a shocking clue. Infection markers appeared in many samples. This isn't direct proof, but it led scientists to suspect that some ancient disease might be weakening the already weak Neanderthal population. These discoveries for the first time gave a direction to the extinction puzzle: low population, plus isolated groups, plus disease, plus human competition, slow collapse. These discoveries in England and France became a topic of discussion worldwide because, for the first time, scientists had real genetic evidence, not just bones. This is where the story of the Neanderthal extinction finally began to become clearer after 2 centuries. Ancient DNA revolution. A major turning point in understanding the Neanderthal extinction came when scientists discovered a way to extract ancient DNA for the first time. DNA in old bones and teeth breaks down rapidly, so this was previously considered impossible. But modern labs developed techniques to extract DNA from bone fragments, especially tooth enamel, which proved to be a game changer. Enamel, like a natural casing, preserves DNA for thousands of years. DNA sequencing machines began reading these tiny genetic fragments and piecing them together in a clear pattern, like piecing together a broken puzzle. Genetic mapping gave scientists insight into the Neanderthal family tree, their health, immunity, and even population structure. This breakthrough is also historic because for the first time, researchers were able to base their extinction theory on real biological data, not guesswork. Ancient DNA revealed a truth that bones and tools had never been able to reveal. DNA reveals population collapse. The most shocking result of the DNA analysis was that the Neanderthal population had declined long before the extinction. Genetic evidence revealed that their groups were very small, sometimes of just 20, 30 people. Small groups meant inbreeding, meaning members of the same family bonded with each other generation after generation. This weakened their immunity and led to the rise of genetic diseases. Another major cause of population collapse was isolation. Neanderthal groups lived far apart, virtually cutting off genetic exchange. When a tribe was weakened by disease, hunger, or natural disaster, they had no other group nearby for support. Weak immunity genes found in DNA indicate that their health was already fragile before extinction. This means that Neanderthals were battling their internal genetic weaknesses more than external threats. Climate change impact. The third major part of the Neanderthals story was rapid climate change. During the Ice Age, the weather would change suddenly. Temperatures would become extremely cold, sometimes warm, and sometimes extremely hot within a few decades. This changing climate was a major shock for them, as their entire lifestyle was based on cold hunting. As temperatures rose, mammoths, woolly rhinos, and icy animals began to migrate northward. This meant a food shortage for Neanderthals. Habitats were also rapidly changing. Forests began to grow on previously frozen lands. Where cold animals were once found, smaller animals now appeared, making them harder to catch. Climate change robbed them of two things: reliable food sources and stable living spaces. Low population, weakened immunity, and resource loss put Neanderthals in a difficult position. They were tough creatures, but they were vulnerable to such rapid changes in nature. This was the turning point where permanent cracks began to appear in their survival system. Modern humans arrive about 45,000 years ago. The first major wave of Homo sapiens left Africa and arrived in Europe. This marked a turning point in the Neanderthal story. Modern humans lack the robust build of Neanderthals, but they possessed a significant advantage: brain flexibility and rapid learning. They were able to quickly make new tools, easily change hunting strategies, and adapt to new environments. Human populations also grew faster than Neanderthals. Neanderthal groups were small and isolated, while modern humans lived in large communities, significantly increasing their survival chances. They also had long-distance networks, meaning that groups could share resources or ideas. Competition gradually increased. Neanderthals' traditional food animals, such as mammoths and bison, were now under pressure from two species. Humans possessed better spear points, sharper blades, and advanced hunting planning. This meant that food resources gradually became more available to humans. Humans also had a cultural advantage. They created decorations, used symbols, and had stronger social bonding. All this made them an organized, fast-growing species. Interbreeding and the quiet extinction. Scientists once believed that there must have been major battles between humans and Neanderthals. However, DNA studies have completely changed this theory. Evidence suggests that there was no conflict between the two species, but interaction and interbreeding. This means that humans did not wipe out Neanderthals, but gradually absorbed them. This process was so slow that it is known as the world's quietest extinction, the quiet extinction. When humans and Neanderthals began living in the same area, they mated and had children over several generations. These children possessed mixed genes from both species. The modern human population was large, so with each generation, these mixed children gradually assimilated into the human population. This resulted in the Neanderthals' distinct identity diminishing. They physically disappeared, but their DNA did not. Even today, most people in the world carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Skin genes, immunity genes, and certain physical traits are the result of this interbreeding. This means that extinction wasn't a rapid, violent event, but rather a slow blending process where one species genetically merged with another. The final scientific verdict. Now that archaeological data, climate records, and ancient DNA combine to create a complete picture, scientists' final verdict is clear. Neanderthals didn't become extinct for any one reason. It was the combined result of several factors. First, their population had already shrunk long before extinction. Small groups and inbreeding reduced genetic strength. Furthermore, climate change continuously affected food and habitat. Cold phases, warm phases, and rapid shifts, all of which weakened their traditional lifestyle. In addition, disease susceptibility was a major factor. DNA shows that Neanderthals' immunity was already fragile, making even minor infections a major threat. At the same time, the arrival of modern humans increased competition. Their better tools, faster learning, and larger communities placed resources at their disposal. And the most subtle but powerful factor was interbreeding and gene swapping. Neanderthal genes became diluted in the larger human population, leading to the loss of their distinct species identity. This means that extinction wasn't a single event, neither a war nor a sudden disaster. It was a gradual, silent collapse, where nature, genetics, and human expansion combined to absorb an entire species. For this reason, the extinction of Neanderthals is today called the quietest, most mysterious extinction in history,